Like if we don't go to Iran and try to help them get past their bullshit and improve their situation to some degree, then China will do that, and then a country that is pursuing nuclear weapons will be under China's control. Is that good for the world? Is it good for the United States? Like the point is, we're not going to not talk to these people, right? So that's fact number 2. And fact number 3 is that foreign wars are usually unnecessary and very costly, both in money and lives. We don't want that shit. I certainly don't want it, and I don't want to hear from people that didn't have the balls to sign up in the first place. I just don't want to, like, if you haven't been in war, shut the fuck up about this issue, because you're never going to go. Just spit on it. That's what I always say.
Spit on that Hawk Tua. Dan is going to be the new Hawk Tua girl.
Yeah. I mean, that was good advice she gave.
She did give really good advice, helping women stay in stable relationships since 345 BC.
I'm not sure that doing a rug pull on crypto is the best idea, but
yeah, I think it wasn't a good look. You really got to question her judgment.
She's on the run now, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
nobody's seen her in a while.
It kind of shows everything that's wrong with influencer culture, though, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is politicians are trying to be influencers now. Well, isn't that weird? Like Nancy Mace is walking around in her goddamn pajamas. Like, oh, look, I'm working so hard I'm in my pajamas. You work 80 days a year.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and they bring their babies on the floor like just as a publicity stunt. Yeah. It's the most absurd performative thing.
Yeah. By the way, the Congress has elite child care for free for every member of Congress. Yeah. Elite child care. So that it's just a ruse. The whole thing is bullshit.
Well, everything is bullshit, right? Even with Alligator Alcatraz, they're framing it like it's a new Auschwitz. Like, Alligator Alcatraz has air conditioning and central heating, whereas most prisons in the state of Florida that house Americans, there's a guy named J.D. DeLay that made a whole thing about it, don't have any of that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you're a Florida man, Alligator Alcatraz is just home, right?
Yeah. It's my backyard.
Yeah. I think they should turn it into a content farm. You know what I mean? Just have the illegals wrestle alligators to the death. And if you win, you get to stay.
No, and you stream it, and the streaming revenue pays off the national debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to be a lot of...
Something's got to, because nothing that we're doing legally right now is going to pay it off.
So I take it you're not a fan of the big, beautiful bill, Dan?
I'm not a fan of omnibus bills, just like Trump wasn't 12 months ago.
I think omnibus bills are pretty fake and gay. It is going to be good for people who own investable assets. It's going to be good. It's going to be good for stockholders. It's going to be good for Bitcoin. It's going to be good for a lot of that.
Anybody that depends on our currency getting weaker, sure.
Anybody who anybody with investments.
Yeah. If you have assets that are going to look better against the dollar, then sure. Which is technically speaking, that is if the economy doesn't crash entirely, which I don't think will happen.
I think it will happen, but I don't think it's happening this year.
No, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, to be honest.
No, I think there's factors.
Our spending power is too high. Like we can run a debt for a very long time.
Well, our entire economy is based on trade deficits. And these trade deficits are also based upon dollar hegemony. And the dollar hegemony is also based on getting cheap goods from China, which means you outsource the middle class. And it also is based on establishing dominance, military dominance in the Middle East, which a lot of people, as you see on X, are very upset and very angry about. And it's one of those things where if Trump fixes these problems, well, all of a sudden we have less dominance. All of a sudden we can't run these deficits. And then a lot of these countries, they buy a bunch of U.S. stock. They hold U.S. dollars. They have T-bills. They have all of these things. Even if they dump like 5% of those holdings and rebalance, you get a much weaker dollar. Grandma's portfolio tanks. The boomers are the largest cohort in the United States of voters. If you're a Republican and you have elections coming up, what can you really do if you're in Trump's team and you want to have a job and have relevance after this administration's over? Like Owen afterward, is like, look, dude, you can't depend on MAGA forever. You're right. And that goes for people on Trump's team. They got to think to the future. You can't, a lot of the stuff that Trump is going to promise doing that the base votes for, it can't work theoretically it can't work in the short term. There's going to be a lot of short-term pain with that. And then if he doesn't do this stuff, the base doesn't vote. It's like patching holes in the Titanic.
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning. I'll challenge one of your assumptions about the dollar. Um, the fact that we're the world's reserve currency is the primary reason that the dollar will sustain, right? Because people are trading in it. And one of the ways that we can continue to affect that in the Middle East is by using American soft power, not military power. For example, we'll get into more of this with the Iran thing, but the 2008 to 2010 State Department position and Department of Energy position on Iran was to make a deal with them and say, we'll give you, which is the deal that Trump's trying to make now, by the way, we'll give you 3%, 3 to 5% enriched uranium. We give it to you. And you can have reactors, but no centrifuges, ever. That's the deal. And in return for that, they give us intelligence on terror organizations. They stop funding the H's, Houthi, Hamas, and Hezbollah, and give us discounts on oil, just like they do to China right now, which consumes 75% of their oil. And they pull out of BRICS, right? And they continue to trade in the U.S. dollar. That would be a really good example of American soft power, where we, I don't know if you would say put Israel on a leash, because I don't think they would need to be if Iran wasn't funding some of this stuff already. But yeah, certainly step in, which is what Trump's doing now, to play dad, because it's two children fighting. You know what I mean?
It is actually two children fighting.
So I think there's a lot of ways to go about that. Also, the other part of that with regard to BRICS, Brazil doesn't have a robust economy enough to really contribute. Russia certainly doesn't. They're fucked because of this war. And China's economy is in big trouble right now. Their citizenry is the #1 purchaser of gold worldwide right now, and it's been that way for about a year. And the reason for that typically is because of lack of trust in their currency. The yen is at a 70-year low.
But China doesn't use the yen, do they?
Or not a yen,
the
yuan.
Yuan,
Yuan. So the yuan is at a 70-year low, I believe, right now. And right now, Mexican labor is 1/3 the cost of Chinese labor, so they're not competitive in the market right now. It's a big problem for them that they got to solve, which is why I think they've been pushing this Iran thing, which is to try to weaken us, not just socially, but economically as well. It just didn't work because Trump doesn't play that bullshit, right?
No, it's true. But a lot of right-wing influencers are big mad about what Donald Trump has been doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, there's a lot of noise,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about, and there's a lot of people who also just happen to not like Jews and want to blame and have what's called Israel derangement syndrome, and want to blame Jews, and they want to blame Israel for every problem that's happening in America.
Yeah, to me that's just like some people call it woke right or whatever, maybe, I don't know, but to me it's just the same old loser bullshit. It's like the dude who calls every girl a lesbian because nobody will fuck him. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's got to be the cause of my problems. To be honest, I blame Freud for all of this. Freud and Marxism, but we'll start with Freud. Freud teaches you that you've got problems, there's an external tormentor that has caused those, your mom, your dad, somebody else in your life, and it's your job to go on a healing journey and fix that over the course of however many years. That's gay, right? Like, you're a fucking adult human being. Figure your shit out. That's why I like Adlerian psychology, which is it's your work to fix yourself. And it's not a journey. It's a fucking, like, this needs to get done now, right? That's a much better way
journeys
of
take
going
a long
about life.
time. Tasks get done fast.
Yeah, so if think about it like this. Your feels are hurt. You've got some emotional distress or whatever. Okay, you got a broken leg. So you just identify as somebody with a broken leg now? Like, oh, I'm just bipolar, I'm just this or that. It's like, no, dude. You wouldn't walk around with a cast for the rest of your fucking life because you broke your leg when you were 8. It doesn't make any sense. Get over it and fix yourself. That's all I'm saying.
No, agreed. A lot of people were very scared about the World War III narrative, and a lot of people were screeching autistically about Trump's going to get us into World War III. He's George Bush. He's this. He's that. And it wasn't coming. I mean, obviously, it comes from the left. Obviously, it comes from corporate media because there's a clear agenda to.
It turns out a lot of it came from China and Iran as well. I don't know if you saw this, but
Walter Kirk.
What's that?
He's the one who wrote that article. But yeah, continue.
Is he the one? Is he the author? Yeah.
But
so 270,000 individual posts over the course of 2 or 3 days came out of Iranian bot farms. World War III or this or that. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. By the way, that's a huge issue. This I work with an organization that identifies these bot farms,
What's the organization called?
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I work with this organization that identifies these bot farms. I'm going to be putting out a lot of information over the coming months with specific posts. So, one is they're really good at gaming the algorithm. And then two is they don't really – this is something people get confused about. They think that Russia wants this person in charge or China wants this person in charge. Really what they want is chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how they benefit is through chaos. So they will either – so some of these accounts have been taken down recently or deleted themselves. You've seen them, right?
Yes.
Like these people, this Texas Patriot, whatever the fuck it was, and he was a Pakistani dude. He got caught because he was being a dick about it. He was like, I'm a patriot from Texas, and here's all my stats. And then somebody just looked into it like, oh, you're from fucking Pakistan. Great, dude. Which is China, by the way. For those that don't know, the U.S. government funded ISI, which is Pakistan's intelligence service, up until 2018 when Trump ended it, and then China stepped in, and now they fund it. So Pakistan is a Chinese cutout. But yeah, you keep seeing these examples of these things. So this is what we're going to do is find these individual posters and show that they're not who they say they are. And then the second one is they start a lot of shit by saying extremist things. That's one of them through these accounts. And the second thing is the larger bot farms who go onto those extremist posts, whether it's a real person or not, and amplify them using the algorithm, right? So this has been going on since probably 2011, 2012 with the trans stuff. That's really started. It kicked into high gear in 2012 with the second Obama campaign, and 2016 obviously with the Russia collusion shit. That was a big part of it. So, some of it's not technically illegal. It's the exact same thing that Cambridge Analytica did to get Trump elected. They just targeted, I think it was like 16 districts that would help him win states.
Yeah.
And they pumped all their ad spend into that. That's how it went. And that's just what these people are doing now, right? So, the thing that I want to do is to show the mechanics of it, because once you see it and you go on one of these posts that says something that's kind of extreme, but you're like, maybe there's something to that. Then you can look through the post and see that all these bot farm accounts are amplifying it, and then you should get suspicious, right?
Well, I think the other issue, too, is that you have a lot of big right-wing influencers that came out of nowhere, Cough Coffee and Carol, that are really good at using those farms to amplify what they're doing. And, you go from addressing real concerns like small businesses getting decimated and poison being in your food, and the way we structure our foreign policy, to just straight up spurging and just always having a contrarian take, even if it makes no sense, because that there's a whole algorithm of these bots that are going to amplify what you're doing, which will give you more ad revenue, get you more media gigs, and just get you more sponsorship money going forward.
It's just audience.
It's a business model.
It's just audience capture, right?
Yeah. That's
all. It's not new. Audience capture is not new, but now people have figured out how to manipulate and exploit it. That's it. It's nothing. It's really not that complicated, to be honest. But I think once people see the mechanics of how it works, then they'll recognize it when they see it, which is gonna. They're not going to stop. They're just going to have to change their strategy a little bit. So we'll see how that goes.
Because it does feel obvious to anybody with half a brain when you see what X is. It's like the state-funded mental hospital having like a sewing circle.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody can't see that.
Here's
right?
one way that you can definitely see on Twitter. It can be harder because you don't see likes and stuff like that, but you can see comments, so you can learn to see that. But on Instagram, it's extremely easy. So find a video where it's like, when I say extremist, I mean it is an alternate point of view that is being presented as fact with no evidence.
Yeah.
That should count politically as extremist to you, because that is an extremist position. We demand data here, right? So find one of those posts. It doesn't matter who it is, on the left or the right, and look through who the posters are, people who are like agreeing fervently with it or trying to start shit with other people in the post. And then look at other ones that are similar to that and see if that original person liked their post. That's how you know immediately that there's a bot farm engaged on that post.
Yeah.
Right?
This could also be state actors trying to...
it's all state actors.
Yeah.
It's China, Russia, and to a lesser degree, Iran, but they're a cutout, right? They're a proxy of China right now.
But do you think it could also be like American intelligence agencies doing things like that to
I'm
try to
sure,
help create more, not really create terrorism, but to like identify quote unquote terrorism so that they can stop it, so that their budget can increase and whatnot?
Oh, I don't know about the specifics, but I'm sure they're involved somehow. Like USAID was funding some of this stuff before. We know that for a fact. So,
yeah.
You know, who knows? Who knows what the actual intent is?
Because who are they targeting, right?
Yeah. Well, the not just who are they targeting, but why do they think they're good at anything? They're not actually good at anything. Our intelligence community sucks right now.
Well, they use outdated equipment. It's a clown show. It's a joke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I think the aim is privatization.
Maybe. I don't have a problem with privatization. I mean, but it presents challenges too. Like, I used to have a fondness for libertarians, but they've gone full retard now.
How so? Can you give some explanations?
Yeah, like pacifism is a stupid idea. The idea, like non-interventionism, is stupid. It's stupid. That's the dumbest fuck. So here are the facts as they are. We are not going to shut our country off from the world. We're not going to stop buying stuff from other places. We're not going to stop traveling to other places. We're not going to stop supplementing our energy from other places or our rare earth minerals from other places, which means we have to have relationships in the international community. Now, I don't want any pointless wars, and I don't want to hear from all these little fucking gaylords who are like, oh, I'm not going to die for Israel. You weren't going to die for anybody because you never served our own fucking country. So shut the fuck up, right? I'm the one that has to go over there and fight. So shut the fuck up. That's all I got to say about that. Anyways, we are going to have international relations. And as such, we're going to have we're going to brush up against other countries, sometimes ones that we don't like that much. And the fact is, if we don't engage with the international community, that's fact number one. Fact number two is China's current proxies or partners are North Korea, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, and Russia. Those are the five main ones, right? That are partners with China, that are doing fucked up shit with China. Okay, cool. So, and this goes back to the containment phase of the Cold War, which I thought we handled very poorly. Yeah, I thought we handled very poorly. So, if we don't engage with countries, like if we don't go to Iran and try to help them get past their bullshit and improve their situation to some degree, then China will do that, and then a country that is pursuing nuclear weapons will be under China's control. Is that good for the world? Is it good for the United States? Like the point is, we're not going to not talk to these people, right? So that's fact number two. And fact number three is that foreign wars are usually unnecessary and very costly, both in money and lives. We don't want that shit. I certainly don't want it, and I don't want to hear from people that didn't have the balls to sign up in the first place. I just don't want to, like, if you haven't been in war, shut the fuck up about this issue, because you're never going to go. You had 25 years to fight. You're never going to do shit. But we don't want that, so American soft power is the way to go. American soft power insofar as, well, we can enrich uranium for you and give it to you if you want nuclear power, but you got to give us oil and you got to make these concessions. We fucked this up badly in the 90s, badly. So two major things that happened in the 90s. While Clinton was balkanizing the fucking Balkans and bombing Iraq for no fucking reason, Osama bin Laden was growing in power. We didn't do shit about that. And
we helped him get power.
Yeah,
actually.
we helped him to some degree. And then, well, we had a chance to imprison him in 96, and we didn't take it. And North Korea developed a nuclear weapon in that time when we were just like, oh, don't do that.
What
don't
happened
do
in
that.
96 with that?
In 96, some criminal court, I don't remember which one it was, I had to look it up, had bin Laden either cornered or in custody, and they offered him to us, and we said no in 96, right? So anyways, we also allowed North Korea to develop a nuclear weapon in that time, and this is the thing that's super fucked up about it. We were negotiating with China because China wanted to enter the World Trade Organization. I think a lot of people have heard about this recently. China wanted to enter the WTO, and Clinton said, okay, cool, as long as you do this, but he didn't get anything in writing. Like, there was no caveat that's actually in writing saying, China, if you keep using slave labor, for example. They have 1 million slaves in China right now that are Uyghur Muslims. If you don't stop using slave labor, if you don't stop fucking around with our, like trying to manipulate our currency and blah, 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 and stealing our intellectual property, and also North Korea belongs to you, get them under control. We had all that opportunity between 1995 and 2000 to do that, and Clinton just gave them a free pass into the WTO anyways, without any caveats, right? That was a huge fucking mistake. And that's when China's economy really took off in the early 2000s. That is Bill Clinton did that, and his stupid fucks, Madeleine Albright and all these dumb bitches, man. What the fuck were they thinking? So that's the reverse example. The better example would be, okay, cool, Iran wants nuclear energy. Let's help them get it, but tell them straight up, you can't have centrifuges, and if we see them, we're going to blow them the fuck up, right?
Which is what Trump has done,
Yep.
and he's had the same. And the people that are freaking out and getting angry about Trump doing this, Trump has never changed his views on this.
No.
And if anything, Trump was probably more hawkish in term number 1 than he is now.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, the way he's doing it right now is precisely how it is meant to be done, right? Certainly we have the threat of military power, but the American military power is not dudes like me with rifles. It's fucking 5th-gen fighters and bombs, man. We flew 5 bombers in under radar. They didn't know we were there until the fucking bombs hit. You know what I mean? That's our real power. So and the Navy as well, firing cruise missiles that were in flight for an hour and a half while these other bombers were getting in there. That is our real power, and everybody fucking knows it, by the way, which is why Iran didn't do shit.
Yeah.
Like that whole, like, I like Tucker. You're using Alp right now, as a matter of fact. I think
It's
he's
a great product.
Yeah, I think he's a good dude, but this whole thing, like, oh, Iran's going to kill thousands of our soldiers if we do this. No, the fuck they're not. That was never a threat, ever.
Yeah.
Like, we clipped Soleimani back in the day, and what was that, January of 2020 or something like that? We clipped Soleimani. He was the head of the IRGC. He was the planner of the Beirut bombing, the Marine Corps Beirut bombing in the 80s. This and that and this and that, all this stuff he's done over the years. He also was the one that coordinated the partnership between Sunni and Shia to come against America back in the day. He was the number one, like, state actor involved in terrorism globally at the time. We fucking blew his dick off with a switchblade, and they didn't do a goddamn thing about it. They did exactly the same thing they did this time, which is make a phone call to our allies in Qatar and say, hey, we're going to send some rockets. Here are the grid coordinates. Make sure you move all your people out of the way. That happened in 2020 as well. And I like what's changed since then? Trump's still in office. We still have the best goddamn Air Force and Navy in the world by a wide margin. So what was the expectation there? I think people are locked into these worldviews where they have to backstop them. This is my worldview, and I'm going to go find facts or rhetoric to support it. Well, that's not how life works, right? Your facts and your rhetoric are what is meant to define your worldview, not the other way around. And this is a prize. It's just plain confirmation bias. That's all it is. And it's getting nasty, too, now, because all of these people will amplify that message. And which of all of these right-wing and libertarian influencer people that were saying doom and gloom have taken any responsibility for how wrong they were about all of this
Well, no,
stuff?
they doubled down. It's like the COVID narrative.
Yeah, well, they started to take credit. That was the thing, like, oh, yeah, Trump didn't do it because we made such a stink. Like, yeah, Donald Trump is on Twitter worried about what you fucking think. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
Well, actually, I do think that people on his team do monitor social media and do monitor the political climate.
They monitor
to
it,
see,
sure,
to
yeah.
see what the reactions will lead to.
Sure. Yeah.
I do think that there is something to be said about that. I also think that a lot of these
the pacifist libertarian right-wing position against Trump in that issue had no effect on him. There was never any intent to send boots on the ground to Iran. There was never any threat of Iran launching a major attack back against us. None of that shit was ever real. They're just taking credit for something that's like, well, I hope it doesn't rain today, and when it doesn't rain, like, my hope did it, buddy.
Well, Dan, this microphone keeps tigers away. You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because I haven't
there's
seen
no tigers.
Yeah. It's the same type of
retarded
analogy.
nonsense.
Yeah. But then also the neocons don't really help very much either when they say Iran has nuclear weapons and they're going to blow us up and they're going to nuke us and they
Yeah,
like
they're
try
full
to
of shit.
and they try to do stuff like that.
Mark Levin, that short little fucking gay lawyer. He wouldn't that. So I don't listen to people talking about war that don't have the capability to fight one. right? You don't necessarily have to have been to a war, but if you're like 4 foot tall and old, shut the fuck up. You don't know anything.
Yeah, you're not going to be the one who goes and dies and does X, Y, Z. Another thing too that a lot of these non-interventionist, pacifist type people kind of miss out on is that if we don't have any influence in that region, right? Which I don't like it, but this is just what is, right? If we lose our influence, if Israel stops existing, you do create these massive power vacuums in this region. When the power vacuum occurs, you could get a repeat of what you saw in Syria. You could get repeats of what you saw in Libya. You could have
which is fine, by the way.
Well, but here's the other problem.
But we have, if we're going to allow that, we have to make the decision to never let anybody from that region into our country.
Okay,
ever
that's
again.
what I was going to say.
Ever.
Yeah, which Trump is doing now. But when you have another administration, when you get President Gavin Newsom or President AOC or Kamala or, God forbid, or Cory Booker or somebody of that nature, or even if you get like a neocon Nikki
It'll probably
Haley
be
type.
Shapiro, I think. I think in,
Josh Shapiro?
in 32, Shapiro will probably run and win. That'd be my guess.
Probably because he doesn't sound insane when he talks.
Yeah. No, he's a normal guy. I think, to be honest, I think Shapiro could win as a Republican even. He doesn't have that many extreme positions.
And he wasn't even that bad. I mean, he was bad with lockdowns because everybody was, but compared to other Democrats, he didn't. There was no mandates. It was pretty. He was relatively level-headed. He was probably the most level-headed Democrat that you had running.
As far as governors,
minus like the Democrat governor of Kansas, who didn't really do anything about lockdowns or anything.
Yeah, you can't. Not in Kansas. You'll get fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as Democratic governors go, I think he's got the highest approval rating in his state of any Democratic governor. I'm pretty sure.
I believe it.
I think it's like in the high 60s.
I think
like
Whitmer actually, even though I don't like her, has a pretty decent approval rating too.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say though is that like those power vacuums will cause uncontrolled migration from those areas. Even if not to the U.S., you'll see uncontrolled migration into Europe because Europe is being governed totally differently, and Europe is already turning into an Islamic caliphate. If Europe continues on that path and it becomes expedited, we lose allies in Europe.
Well, that's the thing, right? So the downstream effects are if the countries that we do want to do business with don't adopt our policies with regard to not letting these motherfuckers in, then we can't let them in either. So we completely isolate, and that is an option. I don't know if it's a reasonable option, but it is an option on the table to completely isolate ourselves from the world. We have everything we need here. We've got cobalt, lithium, and oil, right? We can grow our own food. We have really fertile soil. We have great runoff in the northern Midwest to grow food and all this stuff. We could do it if we really wanted to, right? Is that what we want? Do you want to live in a world where you can't go anywhere else? Like you're trapped in America, not because you don't want to go anywhere, but because we've chosen to isolate ourselves from the world. And if you want that, then that's your position. That's fine. Like I'm not gonna say don't have that position. You're entitled to believe whatever the fuck you want. But that is crazy to me.
Yeah, and there also is a third order effect where, you get power vacuums in the Middle East, you get even more uncontrolled migration into Europe. You can't go travel to Europe anymore just because of your own safety.
Well, I guess
does that make sense?
Yeah. Where would the red line be? This is for your listeners who maybe think that way. Where would the red line be if China and Russia and Iran show up in Canada and Mexico? Is that now a red line? If they start building missile silos in Mexico, is that a red line for you? Because that's what happened in fucking Cuba back in the day, right?
Yeah. Well, Trudeau, when he was president, or prime minister, he was letting the Chinese run training exercises in Canada.
China owns 60% of Canada's rare earth mineral rights. Do you know that?
No.
They also own 65% globally.
That's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
Well, and also
like whether you think you're in a war or not, if somebody who is adversarial to you is working around the clock to box you out of the resources necessary to move into the future, that's a fucking problem.
Very big problem. And there's also a problem too where people think like, Iran's going to attack us, or there's terror cells and all this other stuff, right? There is a possibility of terror cells. Yeah. There is, right? But
I hope that doesn't happen. But I hope
the way that
they're
going to attack us, they're going to destroy us from within.
Look, Marxism's been doing a great job without having to attack anybody. You know what I mean? For 100 years now, they just tell people to hate America. That's what kids learn at universities now. Is we're the bad guys. Churchill was a bad guy. America's a bad guy. You shouldn't love your country. You shouldn't do stuff for it. And look, G.K. Chesterton said that men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because the men had loved her. It's just like anything else in your life. time and care you put into something produces the outcome.
Yes, but what happened in Rome? They started clipping coins. A couple hundred years later,
Diocletian,
the currency is worth jack shit.
Yeah. And then they let the barbarians come in and rule the Western Empire.
But here's the thing about that, right?
The
barbarians didn't like conquer it so much by force. They conquered it because the people in Rome just didn't care anymore, and they were just like, fuck it, we don't care. For 100 years, the barbarians were controlling Rome, and the people in Rome were none the wiser to the fact that the barbarians were controlling things. And
well, the barbarians considered themselves Romans
at
that point, too, which is really funny. They eventually became the Byzantines, but they even like the Byzantine name came later. The people that were the barbarians that were ruling Rome until the 14th century, they thought of themselves as Roman, not Germanic or not Byzantine or any of that shit. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. The Romans found a way to get all of their hard work done by foreigners, let them into their country, and so many of them came that they took over the country. Does that sound familiar to you?
A little bit, and they also served in the Roman military.
Yeah.
And even in the Ottomans, they were using slave labor and people that they conquered to serve in their military. And you've had people like Dick Durbin openly say that in exchange for military service, illegal aliens could get citizenship right away.
Well, that's already kind of a thing. Not for illegal aliens, but if you're here on a non-citizen visa and you join the military after 18 months of service, you can apply for citizenship.
Which has a lot of problems.
It does, but I know people who have done it. Good people, right?
Good people.
I mean, like, this is the problem. You catch the type of prey, I guess, if you're going to call it that, or you catch what you use the bait for, right?
Yeah.
So if your bait is you can come here and leech off of our system and there are no consequences and no rules and nobody's ever going to hold you accountable, then you're going to get the fucking dregs of society. You're going to get shitbags. But if you say you can come here and be hyper successful, you can come here like no other place on earth and apply your effort and your attitude and become wildly successful, especially compared to where you came from, and nobody can really fucking stop you, then you're going to get the kind of people who think that way. And they're going to come here and build things like all the previous generations of immigrants did, right? Even 2 generations of immigrants ago, I wouldn't have had any problem with those people. They came here and built shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They improved our society. Now, the ones that are coming now in these mass immigration trains are just like, let's go to America. They'll give us welfare.
Which is what was happening. Housing them in hotels. A bunch of, even when you take an Uber, like, there's a good chance your Uber driver's an illegal immigrant.
Oh, yeah. Still, yeah. Uber or Uber Eats.
Yeah. But imagine that. Imagine you're like a Tren de Aragua gang member and you're doing DoorDash to people in nice neighborhoods. Like, how is that not a gigantic safety hazard?
Well, here's my big problem with it. Let's think of it from the empathetic or liberal standpoint. So this Venezuelan or El Salvadoran person who has been victimized by TDA and by MS-13 their entire lives, right? They had to hide their kids from them so they didn't get forced recruited. They had to hide from them specifically so they didn't get their fucking heads cut off. So they come to America on an SIV, special immigrant visa, and finally they get to start a real life. You know what I mean? Maybe they're still poor while they're working their way up. Maybe their generation is going to be poor and their kids' generation will be better. Who knows? But 2 years into that process, that same asshole from Tren de Aragua or from MS-13, now he's here too. He's right down the block from them, terrorizing them again in our country. What does that say about us? That's not empathy. That's fucked up. Like we let the wolf into the den. And what are they going to do? They're going to do the same shit they've always done. They're going to victimize these fucking people.
It's the same at a smaller, more local scale with the homeless too.
Yeah.
You want to help the homeless. You don't want to punish people for like being poor. Obviously, that's just abject cruelty. But when you flood the streets with homelessness, me as a pedicab driver, it becomes a lot harder for me to get rides when somebody like you's been accosted by 7 bums on the way to the bar. You're not going to want to listen to me trying to give you a ride. You know what I mean? Or if you are worried about climate change or the environment, and there's a bunch of, and you want green spaces, but the green spaces are filled with homeless people shooting up and peeing everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, how does that help the environment? It makes the environment, it makes the problems that you're trying to solve, as someone who's on the left, exponentially worse. And the issue is that there's no willingness to have any kind of nuanced discussion or find a middle ground. At least where we are, we're having civil debates, we're having spaces, we're having discussions to figure out, like, what do we do from here? The left is not doing that.
Yeah.
And you want to know who's actually doing that? Who's actually like one of the best people at doing that so far? Well, there's 2 people, right? There's Shank Who's
Yeah.
really who's
I was just on Young Turks Friday.
okay. I'm gonna watch it, but there's Shank, and there's also, to a lesser extent, Zoran Mandani.
What do you mean?
Zoran Mandani is a crazy radical communist, right? We can agree to that. But Zoran Mandani seems like the type of guy that will go on any podcast and talk to anybody and openly defend their ideas and hash it out in a public space with people who disagree with him. And not very many liberal, and Bernie Sanders too, not very many people who are on that side are willing to even go and walk into the lion's den. You want to correct all these problems that are happening in America that are very rightful problems to correct. If you can't handle being challenged, if you can't handle adversity, you're going to do a terrible job at correcting these problems and actually make them worse.
Yeah. Well, the only real solution to bad ideas is better ideas, right? Like censorship doesn't work and ignoring them doesn't work. I tell people this a lot. Just because you disagree with somebody's solution to a problem doesn't mean a problem doesn't exist. And if you pretend like that's the case, then somebody that you don't like with a position you don't support will come and usually the government will come and solve that problem on your behalf, and it'll be something that you fucking hate. And then you'll sit around and bitch about it. Oh, politicians suck. Like, no, you suck because you didn't do anything to stop that. But the inverse is also true. If the government shows up somewhere and nobody has their hand out, they don't have any power, right? That's their power, is people needing them. So if you can solve those problems, on your own, or with the help of your community or whatever it is, then you don't have to worry about that shit anymore, right? That is how you insulate yourself. If you really believe in small government, limited government, whatever you want to call it, if you really believe in this stuff, then you will have you are required to. You're right there, bud?
Are we good at recording or what's?
It stopped for 1 second. I think the got damaged for a second. The audio's still going.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
All right. That's all right.
It happens sometimes. I'm going to keep going, though. So
The audio's still going.
if you don't solve these problems in your local community, this is what republicanism and federalism mean, right? If you don't solve these problems at the lowest possible level, then a larger and larger actor will come in with bigger and bigger motives and money and solve that problem for you, and you will deal with the consequences of that like we are every single day today. All these stupid little regulations, the interferences into our private lives and into business that need not be, and also our negative consequences for the communities, they happen as a result of our incompetence, in my opinion, right? Stop blaming everybody else for your fucking problems and start solving shit. Now, just like these first-generation immigrants, you must realize that it's not all going to get solved in your lifetime, probably. We dug a big-ass hole, and it's going to take some years to fill it up. Like first-generation Americans, for the most part, never expected to be rich in their lifetime. They wanted to work hard enough so their kids could go to college, right?
Yes.
So they could get successful. Well, society was quite a bit better when we lived in an honor-bound culture that, to some degree, worshipped ancestry, right? So this is how it works. You borrow honor from your ancestor. So I'm Irish or Italian, or I'm a Catholic, or my grandfather fought in the war, this or that, right? You borrow that honor, and you live your life in a way that hopefully your descendants will be able to borrow your honor as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm passing my honor forward into the future, and that was a very good method for society. Now we're all victims of everything all the time, right? We don't think that we're in control of anything, and it's the biggest loser attitude of all time. There's nothing American about it, for sure. Like America is the simple idea that personal entrepreneurship and individual liberty are the ultimate inoculation to tyrannical bullshit.
Yes,
right.
but
and
people
that requires your constant effort. That's
but people also with where we are with our currency being shit and with the dollar being garbage, right, and the fact that you are seeing massive amounts of inflation, these younger this younger cohort of people are going to become less and less motivated to actually work and produce things as a result. And so I do think that there are ways to do that. And it's
that's a misunderstanding of the market, right? Like there's,
which means that you have to
precious metals, Bitcoin, etc. Right?
Yes.
Like, by the way, I don't know how meaningful it is that Governor Wheelchair allows for precious metals to be used as currency here now. I don't know what impact that's going to have, but I like the motivation.
Yeah.
I like the out of the box thinking. Like, all right, cool. Certainly, we're not going to go back to a non-fiat currency en masse right now, but there's ways that we can help lessen the pressure on it. Right?
But I do think that a lot of right-wing influencers are contributing to this, specifically by shilling meme coins that have absolutely no value.
Oh yeah.
When you can just buy and hodl Bitcoin and save money like your grandmother taught you,
Yeah.
and then these problems that you are addressing, and the lack of motivation, the cultural degeneracy, and the unwillingness to work, and the embrace of socialism, and more government, and the blaming of and the looking for external factors to blame, goes away when you're benefiting exponentially from using a better currency that was never available to your parents' generation.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the social stuff, I think, is a reflection of it's a reflection of that nihilism. You know, like I don't think that a country that's doing well is going to have those problems. You know what I mean? Like a country where people see the opportunity, make the investment, and get the reward. They are typically not susceptible to stupid Marxist bullshit.
Like
right?
El Salvador does not have this problem.
No. And it took 5 years to sort it out, right?
Yeah.
So it can happen with a despot, obviously. Like, he certainly is an authoritarian, but it took very little time to actually sort it out.
It's going to take a lot longer in America because A, we're bigger, and B, we have a more bureaucratic system of government that prevents one person from abusing power.
Yeah.
Not a terrible thing, but a lot of the problems that got solved in El Salvador are problems that you could solve individually.
Yeah.
Like, nothing is stopping you from saving your money in Bitcoin. Nothing is stopping you from learning how to grow your own food. Even if you live in a city, you can have plants in your outside your window or something like that.
Yeah, micro farming is making a big comeback actually right now, especially for restaurant owners. A lot of restaurant owners I know are running micro farms, which a micro farm is less than 5 acres basically.
Okay.
And they're producing like a large portion of their own food.
We're
now.
making America healthy again. That's good.
Yeah.
That is a very good thing.
Yeah, but when people like my friend Stefano Sifando says that your indulgement in vice will be commensurate with the amount of pain that you feel, right? Like the more pain, unprocessed pain that you live with every single day will have a commensurate drug use, alcohol use, sex, whatever it is, right? Something, right? And I think I would include political stupidity in that as well. Nobody is clamoring for more government unless they feel hopeless. That's a hopeless idea.
And there's a lot of hopelessness that's going on throughout the entire country. That hopelessness will have an effect on these elections coming up in 26 unless you radically start changing the economy for the better, unless you get massive tax cuts, unless things get super wide open, unless you get a massive like AI revolution on par with what happened in the 1800s with the Industrial Revolution.
I think also spending has to get cut.
But but I mean, I want to be the Queen of England, and so it just doesn't.
Yeah.
In reality, they're never cutting. They will never be able to cut spending because there's always somebody with deep pockets that's going to get affected by it, and that's a donor to your campaign. And you have to. It's a tightrope that you have to walk, and very few people are going to be able to walk that tightrope.
Well, your job as a member of Congress is to make the country better, not to get reelected.
Yeah, but it's sad that people don't see that. I think we need term limits. I think
don't know,
term limits will
maybe.
change that will help with that a lot.
Yeah, maybe. I think even with term limits, the bureaucrats will be a problem. Like the staffers that jump from one campaign to another for 40 years are still going to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you deal with that in a way that's reasonable.
You play ball with these guys. You'll get your speaking gigs. You'll get your book deals. You'll get your insider trading information forever. And that incentive structure is very difficult to. You can't really get rid of that incentive structure.
No, I mean you could make things like it would be illegal to be a lobbyist or to profit from speaking engagements for 10 years after federal service. That I would support more than even term limits. I would support that. If you look at every single living former Secretary of Defense is on some board of some company, right? And fair enough, you get to work after, certainly, and you're probably going to work in that industry. But that's a problem for us. It's a problem that people that were privy to classified information and operating at the highest levels of government can now go into the private sector and re-affect how that's all run on the public side.
Yeah, but basically what we're talking about is you're talking about a whole slew of problems, and then we're figuring out a solution, then we're finding another problem. And what I think I'm realizing, not through this conversation, but maybe other people can start realizing it through this conversation, but I've been realizing it for a while, is that nothing really stops this train, and you can't really solve this problem. It's almost impossible.
Well, the only way to stop is to get off, right?
Yeah.
Which means you individually have to get off of the train. Stop supporting these stupid-ass candidates. Stop paying it to stop getting hooked into this thing or that thing or whatever the fuck. Like, look, this is the best example. All of MAGA, all of them, were anti-omnibus bills 12 months ago
Yeah.
when it was called Build Back Better. Now it's Big Beautiful Bill, the same goddamn 3 letters, and they all support it now. I'm sorry, you have no principles. That is not a principled stance. I understand from Trump's perspective that the bureaucracy is fucked, and we've got to figure out a way to get as much done in my 4-year term as possible. I understand it from his perspective, but that is completely unconscious. That's not a principled stance. How could that possibly be a principled stance? Like, I was against it when they did it, but now when we do it, it's okay. No, that's not right.
Are there anything? Is there anything good coming out of that bill?
No, I don't think so. I think the best thing is the. I used to live here, by the way.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, the best thing for is the spending on immigration and deportations and shit. But I think it's. I still think that's wrong. So essentially, they're going to dump a bunch of funding into DHS. To hire more immigration officers and this and this and this. This is a problem. It's a problem that it's happening because it doesn't need to happen. You could invoke the Insurrection Act and basically deputize. You could basically deputize all of the National Guard in any state you wanted to do this job, which is a temporary solution to a temporary problem. Instead, what the BBB is going to do is it's going to create a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's going to create thousands of new federal jobs that will never go away. People keep telling me, oh, the fucking the next Democratic administration is going to fire all of these.
They're not going to fire.
They're not firing anybody.
They're going to use that to spy on us.
Yeah. So the largest expansion of federal government in history was George W. Bush with the Department of Homeland Security. 160,000 new federal jobs, basically, right? The second largest was Obama. He didn't shrink DHS. He grew it by 70,000 more people. Like, get the fuck out of here. This is another problem with this stuff. We've seen this recently, and you're trying to tell me that what I see with my own eyes isn't true just because you're Republican. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I'm not going to believe that.
Yeah, it is a problem, and a lot of the stuff that's getting pushed in this bill is going to eventually get turned on to you, just like with the Patriot Act and whatnot. I think that's very obvious. What about the no tax on tip stuff?
Well, it's not no tax on tips.
It's up to 25K.
Yeah.
But
So-
I mean, how many people make over 25K on tips anyway, though, right? It's still,
well-
it's still I think overall, as somebody who drives like a pedicab and a tricycle, it does help us out a lot.
I think people that work in nice restaurants will definitely benefit from that.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that to really opine if it's going to be $25,000 worth of tips per year. That doesn't seem like that much, though, to be honest. If you're on the tip minimum wage, what is it, $213 or something like that? So the bulk of your salary is coming from tips. So probably quite a bit. If you're making $50K a year, then I would say
half of that. You're only paying taxes on 25?
Like 65% of your salary would be tips. So you're going to do pretty well.
Yeah.
Tax-wise. So I'm fine with that. I just don't know why no tax on tips and overtime. Why those two things specifically? That addresses a very small percentage of the working class. Now,
I mean,
6%.
It does affect yours truly. Which
Sure,
is a
yeah.
nice thing.
I think it's 6% for tips, and then for OT would apply to a lot of people: police, fire, all that shit.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with that. I don't think they should be paying taxes on their overtime, anyways. So I'm fine with that. But I don't know, like construction workers. Who else works overtime? I guess a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know the details of that one either. Is that a threshold? Is that a $25,000?
I think it's 25,000, which it's a lot better than zero.
For a cop
it's
or
a
a
lot better
firefighter,
than
you're
auditing
definitely-
your $600 Venmo transactions. It is a massive step in the right direction, but everyone's a purist and people want overnight solutions to 100-year problems,
Yeah.
and it just won't happen. And I think that
Now it'll take 2 generations
Yeah.
to fix this,
it's going to take a lot of time to fix it.
which means you've got to start now, and then you've got to prepare your kids to keep fighting.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and-
if you love this, don't tell me you're a patriot unless you're willing to do this.
Yes, yeah, it's and even China, they think in centuries. We got to think on a much longer,
At least in 25
time
year
horizon. Yeah,
periods
we
or
got to think in a
something.
longer time horizon. And also, while this is happening, and while you go through this fourth turning, which is what it is, this becomes an economic reset. You have the best opportunity
What is that?
in history.
Strauss-Howe?
I don't.
The Strauss-Howe theory, the fourth turning. You're
I didn't know
talking
that was Strauss-Howe. I didn't know about the fourth
about?
turning.
Okay.
But it's a bit in a whole massive economic national restructuring,
Yeah.
which happens every 80 years or something, right? Us going through that, it's the greatest opportunity to acquire wealth and have life-changing money than any generation before us has ever had. But we're
Yeah.
not seeing that. We're just seeing negative and being angry.
Well, everybody knows the phrase "buy the dip,"
Yeah.
so buy the dip. Like your
Well,
hard.
it's not dipping now, but yeah.
Well,
Well,
technically it is. Like your hard work and saving and the right currencies right now will definitely put you ahead. There's no question about that. So, but not everybody's in a position to do that, I guess.
No, but I think that awareness makes you motivated to get yourself in the
Mhm.
position.
Yeah.
And when you become aware of that, you just say, okay, I am going to work harder. I will take the second job.
Yeah.
Maybe I will move home. Maybe I will downsize my living conditions because I know it's only going to be temporary, and I'm not expected to downsize forever because of the economy, because of capitalism, or because of God knows what. I'm doing that as a temporary sacrifice because I know that in 5 or 10 years, I'm scaling. I'm taking a step back to take 10 steps forward. It's like a coiling of a spring.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you understand the time value of money too. So with $1, every year you lose 3% of the value of your dollar.
Yeah, if you believe the experts, but it's really like 5 to 10. Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you mean by inflation, but yeah, at a minimum it's 3% typically. Right now it's a little bit less, but it always evens out over a 20-year period typically. Although we've experienced 75 or 78% inflation since 2000, I think, which is fucking crazy.
Absurd. Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it is. So converting your dollar into stuff that's an appreciable asset is very important. Bitcoin, whatever, it doesn't matter what you do necessarily, but you got to do something. Don't have like $15,000 sitting in your savings account. It's not doing shit for you in there. Like unless it's in a high yield savings account, which is like 4.5%, you're losing money on that money.
Even with a high yield savings account, you're gonna eventually start losing money.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even in a high yield savings, you will you will start losing money. You'll see widening credit spreads. You're gonna see a lot of other problems that are gonna start. They're gonna start taking hold. If you had to grade Trump, what grade would you give him right now?
He's an A for me.
You think he's an A?
Yeah. I think he's done most of the shit. Like he's trying to. Some of the stuff is out of his control. Like he can't control Congress. And I don't know that I would want him to be able to.
You can, but you can also put a little more pressure on Congress to act. And you could also not go after people like Thomas Massie and be a little bit more careful who you pick your battles with. And you could be a little more clear in when you sign these massive executive orders. You can have better Plan B and Plan C and workarounds for when these things inevitably get rebuked and overshot by activist judges.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking him to undo 60 years of bad policy in 6 months, right? So I think so far he's done a pretty good job. I do agree that he should have, instead of threatening Thomas Massie, he should be threatening Mike Johnson and John Thune every single day.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the Senate parliamentarian hasn't been fired out of a cannon into the sun is insane to me. Thune can fire her by himself. He has that power. The Senate Majority Leader is the one who appoints the Senate parliamentarian.
Yeah.
And she's pulling fundamental shit out of like the NFA tax stamp stuff, for example. We're having to pay a tax on our right? That this is what the 15th one of the things the 15th Amendment deals with is things like poll taxes and literacy tests. Any kind of burden between you and your constitutional right is unconstitutional, right? So having to pay $200 to get a constitutionally guaranteed item is fucked. You can't do that, right? But that's been the policy since Reagan.
Which is fucked up.
Yeah, Reagan's terrible, by the way. When somebody says to me that they're a Reagan Republican, I mean, like, okay, you're a Democrat? What are you talking about? Tripled the debt, fucking ended insane asylums, fucking gave asylum to all kinds of
illegal aliens
in California. Like, get the
California's
fuck out of
blue
here.
forever,
Yeah.
irreparably,
Yeah.
as a result of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, like, come on, man. And so when over the last 4 years, Biden was just following the Reagan plan. Biden was a Reagan Republican, right?
Yeah.
Fuck off with that shit.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, how do you think Trump's doing with the deportations? Because he's
I-
deporting a lot. He's deporting even less people than Biden.
Yeah, but it's so, they've prioritized it. I know some of these people. They're mostly building cases against the worst offenders right now,
Yeah.
which I understand. Certainly, public safety comes first, and then the economy comes second. I think, right?
I think that's kind of how it should be because
Yeah.
bad public safety is bad.
Yeah.
It does tie in.
Yeah. So, two things have happened. One, to a large degree, they have the violent offenders on the run. One of the other problems was they were waiting for this shit to play out in the courts, and it has now, right? Both with the district courts being brought to heel, and then two, the Supreme Court ruling on a couple of cases. Like, we can deport people to South Sudan now if we want to. There's something they can do about
Which
it.
has some other problems. If you're
Sure,
not from
yeah.
that area, why would you get deported to an area that you're not from?
If you come here and you're a part of a terrorist organization like Tren de Aragua, I don't think we should deport you at all. I think we should execute you, right? You are a foreign invader from a militant organization. You should be killed on the spot.
But I'm not arguing with you. Just like I think pedophiles belong in the wood chipper.
Yes.
I agree
Yeah.
fully. The problem is though, how do you how do you do this at a really high pace without avoiding mistakes? And
It's a good question,
you
yeah.
start making mistakes, and all of a sudden you execute an American citizen, or you execute like a father of four who's not a gang member, and all of a sudden now the media has a meltdown. Now you have more protests. Now you have more people that are turning against Trump as a result of that. And if you're executing a father of four who's not a criminal, and people just decide that they want to stick to this narrative of calling someone who's not a criminal, that does not help the cause at all. It actually will make it worse.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, there's for execution, there's going to be due process. This Abrego Garcia guy,
Human smuggler. It's
he's
very
a
obvious.
human
See the video.
smuggler.
Yeah, see the
He's
video.
got MS-13 tattoos on his hands. Dead. I would kill him right there on the spot. I don't think he deserves to breathe air. Why the fuck are we allowing this? But if the other option is to sling him into the ocean or throw him into South Sudan, fuck him. You know what I mean? I have no problem with that. And
Hey,
it's-
I'm not losing any sleep over it.
I feel bad for the kid, but not the wife. The wife who's been covering up his fucking gang tattoos with little hearts and shit on Facebook, fuck her too. She should be kicked the fuck out of here. But anyways, yeah, like the other problem is working it through the courts, which is happening now, and we're starting to see some results. And then the second thing that's happening as a result is there's been about 1 to 1.2 million self-deportations. The problem with that is, and it's a good number, fine, whatever, it's a less of a burden on our economy, but the problem with that is that's legitimate people that came here because Biden said they could, right? And they're people that follow the law. That's why they left.
Yeah.
So they're going to come back. They're going to want to come back in the right way. They don't want to get that 5-10 or permanent ban, right?
Yeah.
So those people weren't causing any real problems. Certainly an unnecessary burden on the economy, I guess. But the dangerous predators are still being addressed right now. And I don't think you can really start any of the mass deportation until you solve that problem, at least an 80% solution.
Yeah.
Like, there are people.
But you got to do that first before you're going after grandma who's been there for 30 years. And when you see these headlines all over the news, it's a really bad look. And it's almost, I don't think Donald Trump wants to deport Abuela, right? I don't think that's what Tom. But you could have some rogue actors that are that are involved in ICE and involved in Homeland Security that could be doing that to deliberately sabotage Trump's agenda as well.
Well, so Abuela, once, like, let's say we give her amnesty and she becomes a citizen, she can now sponsor her children and her grandchildren to come into this country. We don't know who they are, but legally speaking, she can now sponsor them. This is a problem when I worked for immigration out in the Bay Area that we ran into a lot. There's a form called an N648, and it's a medical waiver for naturalization that allows you to skip the line and also not take the citizenship test, right? Because you've got dementia or some other fucking disease or some bullshit. And there were hordes of doctors out there just like rubber stamping these things, letting Chinese citizens into the country, and then they would sponsor their kids and grandkids and just bring the whole fucking family over. And not because they were special immigrant needs, not because they had a talent or any of that shit, just because they gamed the system. And there were thousands and thousands of these fucking people. We built a whole case against a lot of these doctors, and I straight up told us we can't prosecute this. It was during Obama. They're like, we can't prosecute this. I'm like, well, I'm fucking leaving. I left after that. Like, what was the point of even working there? But this is the downstream effects of these immigration things are the problem, right? So if you want that, if you want to provide amnesty for the good people, if you consider them having illegally entered our country good, which, you know,
No, nobody does, right?
I don't.
I
I
don't.
don't.
I'm just saying that you want to
Yeah.
be able to do this sustainably, and you want to
Yeah.
be able to do this over a long-term period, and you want to do this in a way that doesn't cause us to voluntarily place ourselves into a digital mass surveillance prison.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
should talk through how to do it, right?
So you got to go back and change some of these laws about who's allowed to sponsor who for citizenship afterwards, right? Because if Abuela's been here for 35 years, but her son's a criminal shitbag, I'm sorry, he doesn't get to stay, right?
Well, then,
the
that's-
law, but that's the law as it is. Unless he's committed crimes here in the States, or we can prove he did something somewhere else, then he's on the pathway already. Just
So that we got to change that section of the law.
yeah. And, you know, that's so, but that's not going to happen, right? None of that shit's going to happen. I think at the end of the day, we're probably going to have to eat some of it. Like, some of those people are going to stay here.
They're going to say there's nothing you can do
Yeah.
about it.
Well, there's stuff we could do. I just don't think there's anything that's reasonable or can happen within the right amount of time that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, there's a lot of different solutions out there. America has a farming problem right now, and farming in California in a large way was built by migrant labor. That's what Cesar Chavez was all about back in the day. Certainly, you know, there's things we could do, but they need to be bought into American culture as well, right? Like, that used to be the litmus test. You assimilate or you get the fuck out. This isn't a debate, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can bring your fucking your spaghetti and your tacos and your potatoes over here all you want, but you're gonna fly our flag and not yours, right? You can put yours on a sticker in the car or something like that if you want, but you're gonna be an American. Like, that's the whole point. You left that place because it sucked, dude. I'll say this: nobody loves Mexico more than people who fucking refuse to live there. They love it more than anybody. Just like nobody loves conservative values more than a Republican who's not in power, right? So, do you remember Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? Republicans voted 63 times to overturn Obamacare when they did not have the votes. 2 times in 2019 they had the votes. They lost by 7 and 9 votes respectively, both times, even though they were the majority party. What does that tell you? They never had any intention on repealing Obamacare. They're full of shit.
Well, and you see that too because none of these people want to go. None of these people want to actually meet when it comes to doing any of Trump's agendas as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very transparently obvious that things are full of shit. You're also getting immigration riots. Oh wait, hold on. Let's backtrack a little bit. What do you do when you have places like New York or California or Massachusetts that just openly, or even Austin on a smaller scale, that just openly refuse to comply with anything that Trump does regarding ICE?
You end all of their funding immediately.
But do you think okay? And do you think Trump will actually?
Yes.
You think he'll follow through on that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happens to us as people who live in Austin? How does that affect like the day-to-day consumer, day-to-day resident living in
Yeah.
Austin when that funding goes? How does that impact our safety? How does that impact me getting rides downtown? How does that impact the bartender in terms of how they're getting tipped? How does it impact homelessness? How does it impact people going to school if there's no funding, if there's less funding for schools or less funding for all of these things? Like, what are the second order effects of that?
The second order effects are that people, this is the same as international sanctions, right? Like, ordinary people get affected, and then ordinary people get pissed off, and the third order effect is they go deal with their local representatives, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, or they just have massive anti-Trump protests, and this thing escalates into even more civil unrest that actually turns violent, and what we saw in California winds up happening on a much larger scale.
That's fine. We'll deal with that too. Like, look, the Constitution has a supremacy clause, my friend. It's not debatable. There are certain things that fall under the purview of the federal government, and controlling the border is one of them. And if you don't like it, you can get fucked.
I am not arguing with you. I'm just
I
trying to
understand.
game out okay, well, what happens then? What happens then?
Well, what would happen then is if somebody tries to endanger my community, I'm going to get involved.
Yeah, well, you're also a guy who, you also kill people for a living.
No.
Sorry,
I hurt
mean,
somebody's
okay.
feelings once.
All
I would never do that.
right.
I would never do
You're
that.
a capable guy who's able to do something like.
There's a lot of me running
Yeah,
around.
there's
Not a lot, but there's enough.
I'm just saying, not everybody is in the position that you're in where they can physically just do that
Well, they're welcome to come to my house.
and learn.
If they're scared, you can get behind me.
Okay.
Right? That's fine.
No,
and
fair.
like that. This is what I'm talking about with the local community stuff, you need to know your neighbor, right? Like, if somebody, this is a good example. If somebody came to me next week and said, have you seen Stringer lately? He was talking all kinds of shit about you. I would be like, no, he wasn't. Like, I know him. He's not talking shit about me. And if he had something to say, he would just say it to me.
Yeah.
That is the barrier that you can create when you have personal relationships with the people close to you, like in your community, I mean. So when some asshole shows up and says, hey, you know, Don, who's a Democrat down the road, he fucking thinks you suck. I'm like, no, we just ate brisket yesterday, dude.
Yeah,
what are you talking
you're a liar.
about?
Stop
You're
trying to
full
sow
of
division
shit,
and hatred.
right?
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
this is the way you insulate yourself from external intrusion, is by knowing people and sharing values and sharing your resources and skills with them, right? Like, institutional knowledge is a big problem in this country. People don't know how to do stuff anymore. Well, stop whining about it and either go learn how to do stuff or teach people how to do the stuff you know. That is a solution that is completely within your control right now. Nobody can stop you from doing that.
Or offer value in a community where you can fulfill a need that they don't understand.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there are many ways that you can go about.
I mean, think about, like, if you were going to start a new country, what would be the people you would want, not individuals, but the skill sets you would want to be part of that, right?
Yeah.
Certainly, like, public works, engineering, doctors, shit like that. There's like
people more tech savvy.
indispensable
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
People that know how to defend things, right?
Yeah.
Like, those are the things you need. Okay, well, fine. Figure out which one of those things you are and be that for your community. And then try to identify the other people who have the other skills in your community and encourage them to do the same thing. Like, this is what made America great in the first place, is personal responsibility and resilience. Like, we're not waiting around for somebody to come save us. We build the apparatus ourselves. And if it breaks, we fucking fix it.
Yeah. Though we do have a savior complex on the right. A lot of us thought
We've got a lot of complexes.
we have a lot. Oh, dude, it's state sewing circle in the state mental hospital.
Yeah.
It's really what it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's goofy nonsense.
It's very goofy. Well, and it's incentivized goofy nonsense because that's what drives the engagement. And a lot of these people are also not in the best financial situation.
Yeah.
And so this is just how they make a buck, and they fall in the latest trends. Like you talk about, like, oh, I support the current thing, and it's a liberal thing. Well, there's also a very right-wing current thing, which we saw, like people like the Hodge twins or Ian Carroll, or or the Nick Fuenteses, just throwing out examples for no specific reason at all. They are kind of examples of the I support the current thing, but on the right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the problem I have with Elon talking about we are the media now, about Twitter. I'm like, yeah, you sure as fuck are, buddy. You sure are.
Congrats, you became everything that corporate media that corporate media that we tried to run away from regarding corporate media. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's by the way, the stuff I was talking about earlier with the bot influence, it's not new. It happened way before the internet was even a thing. Nielsen, the ratings company, and for legal reasons, my attorney says to say this is my opinion. Nielsen has been caught many, many times manipulating their numbers over the years. They actually got sued for it in India back in the mid-2010s from one of their subsidiaries, TAM, was manipulating numbers over there for ad revenue. That's fraud.
How did they do that?
Because you just, like, the Nielsen box was a box that you hooked up to your cable box, right?
Yeah.
And it just tracked everything you watched. But there were only like a couple of, maybe 10,000 total boxes. So they could add 100 boxes in a warehouse somewhere, turn the channel on, late night show, and manipulate all the data, right? They did it all over India. I don't know about here in the States. I don't know if they ever got sued for it. But I'm sure if they were doing it there, they were doing it here.
But they're not connected to, like, CNN, NBC, or any of these stations. Like, what would they have to gain from doing that?
CNN paying them?
Okay.
Certainly, right? Like, I don't know what revenue left network stations and went to Nielsen. I have no concept
But
of
that could still be happening right now.
I'm sure it is, yeah. Yeah.
You know what you can hide regarding that is the buying of newspapers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can buy a bunch and throw them in the garbage, but you're going to lose money.
You're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to corporate journalists 3 to 10 years from now?
I think because of how pathetic the so-called new media has been, they'll regain quite a bit, I think.
I think so too, and I think that's been my gripe on X too, is seeing that, like, these very reliable sources who did a really good job of guiding us through COVID and through Ukraine and through what was happening, with all the bad things Biden was doing, they are just completely losing credibility and falling into the same traps that corporate journalists are.
There's a couple
just regarding click farming and whatnot.
There's still really good independent journalists out there. I think like Schellenberger's a good one.
Okay.
Taibbi's a good one. There's a couple, but the people who behave like influencers with the quick cuts and this and this and this, very difficult for me to take that seriously, to be honest.
Or the people that I think saying breaking before every post should be outlawed.
Yeah. That used to mean that you were breaking news, not that you were posting something that another page posted 4 hours ago.
And then you're breaking it as news.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a few people I know on X. I'm not going to drop names or anything out of respect, even though I don't really have much respect for those types of people. It's just breaking. It's like you want to spend your whole life sitting on a computer posting things on social media and regurgitating the same talking points. Like, go touch grass, bro.
Yeah,
go touch fucking grass.
To me, there's two forms of news media. One is the reporter, and the reporter should only say what the facts are, right?
Yeah, and
the person that you see as a host on television should only be reciting facts. I think that Walter Cronkite is the one that fucked this up for us, because he took a hard position on Vietnam, and he was right, but he was not just in what he did. He should have kept his fucking mouth shut and just reported the facts. Here are the number of deaths. Here's how we got into this war, blah, 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 and let people make up their own fucking minds, right? He trained a bunch of people to listen to these guys on television as if they're authorities on anything, and all they're doing is reading off a fucking placard. All they're doing is reading somebody else's words. And the other one is the actual journalist, and that is where I want context from. I want these people to go onto the street and say, hey, here are the facts. Here's what I saw with my own eyeballs. That provides me context. So that's a journalist. Reporter, journalist. Those are two things that I think are very necessary, and we just don't have them in great supply anymore.
And people call themselves citizen journalists and just go up to people and just yell at them, and they don't even let the people talk, and they don't even get the story. They have something they want to say, and they want to broadcast, and they're going to broadcast whatever they feel, without any kind of fluidity to the fact that their opinion might be different. I made a video once back in April where I was trying to ask people how they feel about the economy, and I was specifically just targeting like ghetto black and ghetto Spanish people, because A, they provide the best content.
Yeah.
And B,
they're funniest, yes.
They're funny as fuck. And B, the demographically they do construct a larger portion of the poverty line and whatnot. I don't like it, but this is just sadly what it is.
Yeah.
And so you want to hear from those people to see what kind of bullshit program gets sold. So I was trying to see if I could convince them to adopt central bank digital currencies and whatnot for UBI and everything. And I didn't even do that. You know why? Because the moment I asked these people how they felt about the economy, they immediately said, bring back Trump, with no prompting. And I changed the whole premise. And I remember one time I went to like one of these anti-Israel protests in Austin back in like December or January. And I was like, oh, let me troll these protesters. I'm going to get a fake signature to see if these guys would raise money for Hamas and do all this other stuff. And nobody wanted to sign the petition. Probably more than half of these people weren't even anti-Israel. And so all of a sudden I'm like, okay, or anti-Israel existing.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we got to change how we do this. And so then it just turned into like having normal conversations with people.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys just don't know how to pivot.
Yeah, it's not journalism if you've got the story already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you've already written the story and you're going, that's just confirmation bias. It's nothing.
Nothing.
You've done nothing. You're propagandizing.
You're propagandizing, and you're just doing things for attention, and you're attention farming, and then eventually, if all you do, like, look, here's how I look at it, right? Like, the media calls everybody a fucking Nazi for years and years and years on end, right?
Then when a real Nazi shows up, nobody can recognize it.
Exactly, which is what you're seeing on X, where people put National Socialist in their bio, and they're openly saying that Hitler is good, and it's like, I have to block words on X because everything I see, but it's gotten better, I think, maybe because I blocked these words, but, like, everything I was seeing on X was Hitler content. And I'm just like, bro, like, you're supposed to be a contrarian, but when you start embracing that, guess who loses credibility as a reliable narrator? And guess who starts making a comeback? You lose credibility in corporate media, which are a clear enemy of they are actually the clear enemy of the people. It sounds cliche.
No,
they gain
Maj
more
Tory's
influence.
right about that.
What?
Maj Tory says media is an acronym for most evil devil in something. I don't remember exactly what it means. In America? Yeah, most evil
devil in
America. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but you should if you think of yourself as a contrarian, you're fucked up. A skeptic, yes.
Yeah.
Right? Be Peter Boghossian, for example. Very skeptical. He's a psychologist that was at Portland State University for a long time. Or Michael Shermer from Skeptic Magazine, right? Be a skeptic. Like, the standard is you got to prove your idea to me. Otherwise, I'm not just going to believe it because you're on my side. That's a good thing. But contrarian means you adopt the contrary opinion out of the gate and then work backwards from there. Well, what's the benefit of that? Certainly, there is none. There's no benefit to that. You've now developed an intrinsic confirmation bias of your own to the negative. So what the fuck is the point of that? Be a skeptic. Prove what you're saying to me. What you're saying sounds compelling. Show me the data, and I'll decide for myself.
Yeah.
And if it's good data, then I'll believe it. That's reasonable. But saying that I'm going to believe, because it leads you. This is the problem. All this shit is cyclical. So when people finally start acting normal again and believing normal shit again, then you're put in a position where you have to believe retarded abnormal stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, and then you lose credibility, and then people stop wanting to invite you places, and nobody wants to hire you for your job, and you're stuck doing this content loop forever. You become another Candace Owens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad.
It's very sad. It's like it's the content demon taking over you.
Yeah.
It's
the saddest part is that it's mostly smart people that it's happening to. Smart and influential people. And if they had actual rooted principles, they could be a net gain for society. But instead, they're leeching off society, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it is. It's full blown leeching. It's really you're exposing people's true colors. You're realizing that politics are not the end all be all. You're trying to like there is a blessing and a silver lining, and it shows that your politicians are relatively useless, and
they're just regular people.
Regular people, and the political influencers are not people that you should put your faith and trust into. Just like. COVID showed us that you don't put your faith in the experts; you put your faith in the God. So I think ultimately it gets people to choose and worship God and realign their priorities. That's a good thing in the long run, but it's going to take some growing pains, and we're kind of experiencing that right now. And a lot of people are going to get so wrapped up into like they've based their identity on being contrarians and fighting the establishment. And we talked about this earlier. Conservatives are not used to winning. And now that you're kind of empowered, now that you actually have influence, now that you have a seat at the table, don't blow it. Like, show that you belong at the big boy table.
Yeah. If your dialogue doesn't include a constant return to decentralization, then don't tell me you're conservative. I don't want to hear anything else you have to say. If you're talking about building more government or more control or any of this shit,
I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. Like, Owen Shore is actually a really good example of a contrarian that's staying within the lines.
Yeah, so he's also not afraid. I love Owen, by the way. He's not. He and I are like. Well, first of all, if you base your positive relationships on people that just agree with you on everything.
Oh, I know you guys have plenty of disagreements.
Yeah, you might be retarded if that's the way you go about life. So, but Owen and I could sit down for a couple of hours and talk about stuff and disagree the whole time, but both learn from each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's not like. The chances of us coming to an agreement at the end are not zero, but they're not likely either for the most part.
No, but somebody else who's watching could find a middle ground between both you and Owen, and that's how things get solved.
Or see that you can have that disagreement and still exist with each other. So here's the way that you should go about it. Let's really unpack everything and see at the core level if we can agree on this thing, and if not, we return it to the lower state, to the state or to the community or to the individual, right? That's what republicanism and federalism is meant to do. That's the whole point. So this is the best example I can give. People on the left will tell you, I want free health care. And you're like, all right, first of all, my brain immediately says, well, nothing's free, right? But I'm going to put all this aside and take them at their best possible meaning, right? The principle of charity. What they are really saying is, and it's maybe you can agree with this or maybe you don't agree with it. What they're really saying is that it is probably unethical in the richest country in the history of the world to tell individual citizens who are taxpayers that they can be as healthy as they can afford to be.
I actually agree with that.
I agree with that 100%.
Join Crowd Health. There's a website called crowdhealth.com.
Yeah, they're buddies of mine. Yeah,
yeah, Andy's the man. Yeah. Join Crowd Health, and that problem gets solved instantly.
It's a co-op, right? So you pay into it, and if you're a member, if something catastrophic happens to you, then a bunch of people will help fund
Yes.
thing, or if maybe you're in an opportunity at some point to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's solution to that. So you have to move your bullshit out of the way and listen to what that person's actually saying. Just like if you were talking to a child, to be honest, right? Not to infantilize them, but you have to get to the root fundamental thing that they're saying and then address that, because otherwise we're just talking past each other forever.
Or
You know what I
student
mean?
loans, right? You have $200,000 in student loan debt, and you feel very hopeless about the future.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you be willing to spend a year fixing the roads and potholes and making and cleaning up the city
Yeah.
for minimum wage,
And then
in an exchange for your debt getting forgiven?
Well, or
in
in
exchange-
exchange for us forcing the banks to stop the predatory,
Yeah.
because
Like-
that's really like the banks and the universities are responsible for this, not
Absolutely.
not taxpayers, right? So hold them accountable. I'm all in.
Yeah. Would you be okay? Like, all right, you're upset about student loans and student debt. Do you think it's okay for the government to just be able to lend out money arbitrarily to kids no matter what their degree is going to be?
Yeah.
Like, that shouldn't be okay either. Is there
No, that's a
willingness to-
protection, or that's
Yeah,
that's a
a
numbers
protection,
game,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's like that's what the mob does. Why the fuck are we doing this institutionally to people that are trying? Yeah.
But people on the left, I think if you talk to a leftist one-on-one about that, they're not going to disagree with you, and they'll say that kind of makes sense. Like, let's talk. I think a lot of people just feel as though they're shut out from discourse with people that they think disagree with them. They just think that nobody wants to listen to them, or they have like this total opposite view. Like,
think it's
people on
a
the
little
left
bit of
probably
both,
think
yeah.
that like people on the left, and this is a pejorative, probably think that me and you hate poor people, hate the
Well-
homeless, hate immigrants, all this other stuff, and it's like. I don't know how you feel, but I think generally speaking, there's like an obvious middle ground, and there's,
to me-
more
to me
agreements
it's-
than disagreements,
yeah,
and you should
yeah.
just have a conversation, talk to people,
Yeah,
right?
To me, it's a blight. It's an embarrassment for our country. It would be like if somebody came into my house and my kid was dirty on the floor, unfed. That is unacceptable to me.
Yeah,
right?
it's unacceptable.
No, I can't. We're talking about adults, so I can't control their behavior. I can't keep them off drugs.
No.
Right? We can do something in that regard, but yeah, that's, to me, it's an embarrassment.
It's embarrassing.
It's something that needs to be dealt with.
And you're dealing with a lot of these people who could be veterans, and they served the country and got all fucked up and have a bunch of PTSD, or they wound up getting some substance addiction because maybe they were prescribed something bad by a doctor because they got wounded or they got hurt.
There,
over,
but for
like,
the
so-
grace of God, go I, man. I had a bunch of injuries in the military and took a bunch of Percocet for it.
Yeah.
Right. And I could see. I have a lot of buddies who had back injuries or head injuries that started taking opiates and got addicted to them.
Yeah.
A bunch. I have a bunch of friends that
Yeah.
that happened to.
Exactly.
Luckily, things like Ibogaine exist, right, which can wipe that out in a single setting. But
What's Ibogaine?
it is the most powerful psychotropic drug in the world.
Is that is it legal?
No,
Oh,
no, but you can get it. You know.
okay.
Uh,
But stuff like that should be legal, right? If
Yeah.
it can actually do that, and
They're
there's
working
no
on
like
it. Marcus and Amber Capone, former Navy SEAL, and his wife Marcus Capone. The program is called VETS, VETS, all
Yeah.
caps. I'm sure it's an acronym for something I can't remember, but they're working on getting those treatments legalized
Okay.
nationally. So
well, that's good. All right. Last thing before we wrap up.
Mhm.
You think we're gonna get any? Do you think we'll get any accountability for COVID? And do you think anybody on the Epstein list is gonna get brought to justice?
I'll start in reverse order.
Sure.
No Epstein justice. And with regard to COVID, Fauci's going to get subpoenaed soon.
Yeah.
And because he's been given a pardon, he can't plead the fifth.
Okay.
So he either answers questions or he gets a criminal charge of contempt every time he doesn't.
Okay.
That-
And so if he
that's-
answers the
that's what
questions
Republicans have
accurately
to
and
do.
admits to everything, does he? What happens?
He's free to go. That's just the way it is. That's the way the legal system works.
and then somebody else below him or somebody else that didn't get a pardon goes down.
That's right.
Okay.
Or
I'm-
above him, Francis Collins didn't get a pardon, did he?
All right. I don't think so.
Mhm.
All right, fair.
Yep.
What was I gonna say? How do you feel about Cash Patel and Bongino? Sorry, one last question. I talked to Kyle Sarfin about what's going on in the FBI, and he kind of explained that I know he's very critical about them, but he's like, look, these guys can't really do what they're doing because A, the experience is very minimal, and B, that they don't run the FBI runs them, and it's some bureaucrat and middle management that keeps them on their toes and keeps them scared constantly all the time. And
my opinion is right now they're collecting evidence on people, bad actors inside of the Bureau. That's what I think. I think you're going to see that probably through the midterm elections, and then after the midterm elections, you're going to see some people getting fired, a lot of them.
Okay.
Maybe even charged with crimes.
Well, you can only hope considering what's happened. But there's a lot of panic against a lot of these influencers. They freak out and they're like, "Oh, look, they're not arrest the criminals." There's a guy named Philip Anderson who just screeches constantly. You know what I mean? And it's just like, arrested these Democrat criminals. These guys are useless. I'm not voting. I'm not doing this. And I'm like, these guys definitely hear all this stuff. And anybody with half a brain knows that the best time to make these arrests and do all this stuff is right before the midterms to get people to vote. So, Dan, how do we get a hold of you?
at Dan Halloway on all social media. You can watch Drinking Bros podcast. We had the governor of Missouri on yesterday.
Ooh, fun.
I'm sorry, not the governor, the attorney general of Missouri on yesterday.
Hopefully he pardons Alex Rosen for that bullshit thing that he got accused of.
I can call him about that, actually.
You actually should, yeah.
Yeah, what was it, speeding ticket or
No,
something?
no, not speeding ticket. Actually, he went to Shake Shack to catch a pedophile. And the pedophile was working at, no, it was a Steak and Shake. He went to a Steak and Shake in Branson, Missouri, and to confront a pedophile. The pedophile was working there. The manager didn't let the pedophile out when he was confronting the pedophile who had like CP on his phone. The guy actually wound up getting arrested that same night. But Rosen did a basic kamikaze mission where he made a scene talking about how they're employing a pedophile and he's not coming out and this and that. And they arrested Rosen for like felony harassment, and he's facing 1 to 5 years in prison for. Trying to catch a pedophile that was working at that Steak and Shake. They did. I think that place did address it and said that they want to drop the charges and this and that. The charges haven't gotten dropped. It is a travesty of justice that this person's that Rosen's even having to deal with this right now.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Yeah, but Drinker Bros podcast. We go from attorneys general to like retarded comedians.
Oh, I know some. Yeah.
Yeah, some of your friends probably. And then Citizen podcast is a little bit more serious. I talk about some like politics and culture mostly, but it's mostly about individual responsibility.
Yeah.
Stop being a bitch.
Stop being a bitch, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Great way to end it. Thank you.